everyone, and welcome back to another video. For this design, I was inspired by some crochet sequin pieces and those summer mesh bags I've been seeing. In this video, I will be going through the mechanics of each stitch, and I used mostly triple crochets and chains for this pattern. I purchased my yarn off of Amazon, and I used the Yarn Art Manhattan metallic yarn, and I used the color 901. And for this project, you will also need sequins, which I also got off of Amazon and will leave in the description below. I used a 3.75mm hook, which is important because the sequins have a 4mm hole size. Now, that being said, you can make this bag without using sequins, but I think they're very fun. For this bag, I used exactly one skein of yarn, and I played a bit of yarn chicken at the end, so if that's something that worries you, I would recommend getting an extra skein. That's about everything. Let's get started. Now, you can put the sequins aside because you won't need that until a little bit later on. We're going to first start off with this bottom portion here. So we're going to start off by making a slip knot, and you can make a slip knot by wrapping the yarn around your fingers. You have an X in the front, and then taking this long piece of yarn and threading it through the back and pulling it to make a slip knot. Now you're going to slide your hook into the slip knot and tighten, just like that. Now you're going to hold on to your working yarn and you're going to chain 38 stitches. In order to chain, you are grabbing the yarn and you are just simply pulling it through the loop. Grabbing the yarn and pulling it through. That is 1, 2, okay, I just finished up chaining the 38 stitches, and now you're going to chain an extra 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's because these 4 stitches are going to count as the first treble crochet of your bag. So now we're going to begin round 1. You're going to work a treble crochet into the 5th chain away from your hook. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going into that 5th chain. So wrap your yarn once, then twice. You're going into that 5th chain here. So you're going to grab your yarn through, and you should have 4 loops on your hook, and you're going to go through 2 loops, 2 loops, and then the final 2 loops. And that's how you complete the treble crochet. So after you do your first treble crochet, you're going to chain 1. You're going to skip one of the chains, and you're going to go into the 2nd chain after that, and you're going to do another treble crochet. So we skip 1, wrap your hook around your yarn 2 times, go into that skipped chain. You should have 4 loops on your hook, then go through 2 loops, 2 loops, and then the final 2 loops. You're going to continue this until you reach back to the 1st chain. So after the treble crochet, chain 1, wrap the yarn twice, skip 1 stitch, go into the 2nd, go through 2 loops, go through 2 loops, and go through, another 2 loops. Just continue that on until you reach back to that 1st chain. So I just did the treble crochet mesh stitch across the chain, and I'm left with these last 2 chains here, and I'm going to finish off the last one with you guys. So I chained 1, and I'm going to do a treble crochet into that 1st chain. Now that's 1. You're going to work 2 more treble crochets into the same 1st chain that we had started with. So we did 1, you're going to chain 1, you're not going to skip any, you're going to do another treble crochet into that same one. That's 2. So I did 2, I chained 1. This is the 3rd treble crochet into that 1st chain. And we're doing this so that it can help us turn so we can work back on this side. Once you've worked your 3 treble crochets into that 1st original chain, you're going to work the mesh stitch with the treble crochets into the already existing treble crochets. And I would recommend working with your tail here so that you don't have to weave it in later on. Now, in order to do this, you are going to chain 1, then you're going to do a treble crochet into this existing treble crochet post here. Just like that. And you can see it's creating this curve for the bottom of the bag. Chain 1, treble crochet into that next existing treble crochet on the opposite side. And as you can see, I'm working with my tail being weaved in, so I don't have to do that later on. You're going to do this until you get back to the first treble crochet. Okay, I've just made my way back to this first treble crochet that we had made, and you're going to again work a treble crochet into this first one. And to finish it off, you can see we have the 5 chain that we had done originally, and you're going to simply work a slip knot into that 4th chain here at the top. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to go through the 4th chain. You're going to grab your yarn and you're just going to pull it through everything. And now we have the completed bottom of our bag. So for the bag, I used an alternating stitch for each row. And you can see here, these are all treble crochets, and then the next row I did a mesh treble crochet, and then all treble crochets, and then the mesh treble crochet. And that creates this lovely pattern. So we just did the mesh treble crochets, so now we are going to work a treble crochet into every single stitch. So we just finished off with our slip knot, and you're going to chain 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now remember, this counts as the first treble crochet, and you're going to work another treble crochet into the stitch right after it. So wrap your hook 2 times, go into the next stitch, finish off the treble crochet, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and you're just going to repeat that. You do not need to do a chain in the middle because this is not a mesh stitch. Here's the stitch right after, treble crochet, and then treble crochet again into the stitch right after. And you're going to work this all the way around until you make it back to this chain 5 that we had just made. So I'll meet you back there once I finish. I've just made it back around with the treble crochets in every stitch, and I've made it back to that chain 5 that we had made, and I'm going to simply make a slip knot into that 4th stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, going into that 4th stitch, and I'm just taking the yarn and pulling it through both loops. So now you can already see that the pattern is starting to form, and now it's time to move on to adding the sequins. So in order to do this, you're going to chain 5 as you do at the beginning of every round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is the only time you're going to need to do this, but you are going to work in the opposite direction. So before we were working this way, and now we are going to work this way. And you want this so that the outside of the bag is facing you. Instead of working on the inside of the bag, because if you're working on the inside of the bag, then the sequins will be on the inside and we want them to be visible on the outside. So we chained 5, and now it's time to get out your sequins. So you can see here I have my sequins, and we will only be using the big ones, so you do not need these little ones. Remember, the outside of the bag is going to be facing us while we work. And this is going to be the repeating pattern for the rest of the bag. So I chained 5, I'm going to skip 1, and I'm going to work a treble crochet into that second stitch. And now this is where the sequins come in. So after finishing that first treble crochet, you're going to take your sequins, you're going to put it on your hook like that, and you're going to do a chain as you would with the mesh stitch, but you're going to take it through both the sequin and the loop on your hook. Now this is a little bit difficult, but you do get the hang of it. So grab your yarn and you're pulling it through both there. And now we just did the chain 1 that you need for the mesh stitch, and you're going to work a treble crochet into that second stitch after you skip the first stitch. So treble crochet into that second stitch, and as you can see, that sequin sits in between that space nice and perfectly. Let's do that again. I just finished the treble crochet. I'm going to take a sequin, I'm going to add it on your hook, and then you're going to chain right through both and then work a triple crochet into that second stitch. There you go. You can see the 2 sequins in between the spaces. Now I will say this is a bit of a tedious process, but I think that the outcome makes it totally worth it. So you're going to work this mesh pattern with the sequins all the way around until you make it back to the first chain 5 that we had made for this row. I'll meet you right back there. So I just did the treble mesh stitch with the sequins in between, and I'm going to finish it off with a slip knot as we normally do into that 4th chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, go. And now we are going to chain 5, and we are going to work a treble crochet into each of the stitches. Now this one's going to be a little bit harder because in some of the stitches you'll need to go through both the stitch and the sequins. So I'll show you what I mean. We do a treble crochet into the next stitch, same here. Remember, this is our alternating pattern. And now for this next stitch, you're going to go inside of that sequins. So wrap your yarn twice, go into the sequins, finish it off, and then you're going to go into the stitch right after the sequin. And crocheting into the sequin also ensures that it stays in the same place later on. So do that again, crochet into the sequin, and then triple crochet into the stitch right after the sequin. And you're going to treble crochet into every single one of these stitches all the way around until you make it back to the chain that we had made, and you're going to make a slip knot, chain 5, and then do the mesh stitch with the sequin that we've been doing. And you're going to alternate that for another 14 rounds. So mesh with the sequins, treble crochet into every stitch, mesh, treble crochet, mesh, treble crochet, and you're going to do that 14 more times or until you reach your desired length. This part might take a while, so I'll meet you back there once I finish. Alright, I've just finished up my last row for the main portion of the body. I hope you guys spilled less sequins than I did because I think I'll be finding them around my house for weeks to come. I just finished up with my last row of treble crochets, and I finished off with a slip knot, and I tied off with enough yarn to weave in later on. So now it's time to move on to the strap. Alright, to begin our straps, we are going to use our ending point as a guide. So this is where I ended off with my slip knot, and I'm going to make my strap 8 stitches wide. So if this is the middle portion of our bag, I'm going to scooch over 4 stitches to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to insert my hook here into that 4th stitch to the right of where we ended off. I'm going to make a slip knot with my yarn, make an X in the front, and then bring this portion through the back and pull to make your slip knot. You're going to add your slip knot to your crochet hook. You're going to pull it through just like that, and you're going to join it with 1 chain. Now this is our first chain. We're going to chain 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, for a total of 5 chains to begin our strap. Now for our strap, we are going to be doing the exact same thing that we did for our body, except it's only going to be 8 stitches wide, and we're going to be continuously working up. So let's start off with the mesh stitch for our straps. So we have our 5 stitches here. I'm going to skip 1 stitch, and I'm going to wrap my yarn twice around my hook, skip 1, go into that 2nd stitch there, just like that, chain 1, wrap your yarn, skip 1 stitch, go into that 2nd one, there we go. So we have 2 so far, chain 1, wrap twice, this is our last one. Great. Now as you can see here, each of these takes up 2 stitches, so that's 2, 4, 6, 8. So it's going to be 8 stitches wide. And now we are going to chain up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we are going to turn our work. Now that we've turned our work, we are going to work 8 treble crochets. So wrap your yarn, you're going into that first stitch here. This is 1. This is 7. And we're going to work our 8th stitch into that top chain there. 4, 8. Great. Now you're going to alternate between repeating rounds 6 and 7. You're going to do this for a total of 31 rows. I'll meet you back there once I finish. I've just finished up with my 31 rows, and I ended on the mesh stitch. Now all that's left to do is attach it. As you can see here, I've already marked where I want my strap to attach. I found the middle point and I counted 4 stitches to the right. And you want to make sure that the stitches on this side and on this side are even so that your strap isn't lopsided. When attaching the strap, you want to flip the strap around so that the 2 right sides are facing each other. so we can stitch along the inside and it won't be visible on the outside. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker. We're just going to work a single crochet along the edge of the strap. Go through both the strap and the bag, grab your yarn, pull it through, and then go through the 2 loops. And you're going to go through each of the stitches, making sure to grab both sides. Again, we don't want that single crochet to be visible from the outside. We want to have this nice clean finish. You're going to tie it off with a slip stitch. And all that's left to do is cut and weave in the edges. Now that you've weaved in the edges, you have officially finished the crochet sequin mesh bag. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'll see you next time. Bye!